74, Oprah Winfrey is finally speaking with clarity about the tensions she carried behind the scenes for decades. The world has long viewed her as a champion, a steady guide, a voice of compassion, yet even she crossed paths with colleagues whose choices challenged her patience and her principles. For years, she protected the peace, choosing quiet distance over public confrontation. Now she is ready to explain what truly happened. Today we reveal 5 figures whose actions left a lasting impression on her, and the final name may surprise anyone who believes they already know her story. Number 5. Monique, the unresolved witness. To the public, Oprah is a figure of care and elevation. She is seen as the person who opens doors, protects voices, and lifts up those the industry often overlooks. To Monique, she became something harder to accept, a figure whose silence carried real consequences at a moment when she expected support. Their distance did not come from ego or jealousy, it came from a single choice Monique made for herself, and the response that followed inside the industry. The turning point was Precious. Award season, press demands, long circuits. Monique was asked to promote the film without additional pay, even though her contract was complete. She declined. She has repeated the same idea for years. She would not offer unpaid labor because a studio assumed she should. She believes that decision altered how people spoke about her. Words like difficult and ungrateful quietly surfaced. Calls slowed, opportunities faded, and in rooms where she expected someone to correct the narrative, she felt Oprah remained silent. That felt heavier than the criticism itself. A deeper shift came in 2010. Oprah invited Monique's estranged brother on her show with the understanding that he would apologize for past harm in Monique's childhood. Monique agreed, but says she was not prepared for what appeared in the final edit. Her mother was present. Another brother was present. There had been no warning. She later said, "I told Oprah we were in a bad place, and then you put my mother on the show." She reached out afterward, hoping for a direct conversation. She says she received nothing in return. From that point, the issue was no longer professional. It became personal. In one interview, she said, "She watched a black woman. She watched me take the hit. She did not want a public battle. She wanted acknowledgement. She wanted clarity. She wanted the kind of protection she had seen Oprah extend to others. Instead, she saw a quiet absence that stayed with her." In an open letter, Monique wrote, "Please consider standing by the people who are right, not just the right people." For her, this was not about one project or one missed opportunity. It reflected a larger pattern in Hollywood, where women who stand firm often face consequences while those with power rarely face the same scrutiny. Monique has claimed she lost roles she had earned and believed Oprah accepted parts intended for her. She said the narrative that formed around her damaged her career, not through public attacks, but through quiet shifts that changed how she was viewed. When she revisited the subject years later, she spoke with steady clarity. She described a gradual removal that she linked to her refusal to comply. She often returns to the same idea: professional setbacks affect personal life. In one interview, she said, "You touch my livelihood, which touches my family." She was not speaking figuratively. She was speaking about tangible consequences. For Monique, the fracture was not rooted in anger. It was rooted in the desire for truth. She has said that the distance will remain until Oprah addresses the events openly. On a podcast, she said, "Either it gets fixed or it gets settled later, but I am not going anywhere." Her words reflect someone who believes her story has been reshaped by others and who intends to protect it. In her view, Oprah did not simply withhold support. She withheld recognition at a moment when Monique needed a voice beside her. That is the part she has carried longest. Silence can harm, but so can misrepresentation. The next story shows how a clash over truth, not loyalty, reshaped another relationship entirely. Number 4. James Frey, the fractured storyteller. When Oprah added a million little pieces to her book club, she believed she was elevating a raw memoir of addiction and survival. She saw it as a confession delivered without filters, shaped by lived experience and painful honesty. That belief shifted when The Smoking Gun published an investigation suggesting that key sections of James Frey's account did not align with official records. Police reports, court documents, and accident files did not support the book's most dramatic moments, including the jail sentence, the serious crash, and the scenes involving extreme substance use. Oprah did not remain quiet once the questions began. She confronted Frey on her own stage and spoke with controlled clarity. "I really feel duped, but more importantly, I feel that you betrayed millions of readers." Her tone stayed steady, yet every word carried weight. She held him accountable for presenting a story people had trusted during their own struggles with addiction. In her view, he had not misled only her. He had misled an entire audience that relied on the book club for truth. At first, first, she supported him. She even called into Larry King Live to defend him, saying the focus should be on his recovery and the hope his story offered. But once the full scope of the inaccuracies became undeniable, she reconsidered. She realized what her initial defense had implied. "I left the impression that the truth is not important," she said. It was a clear admission. She recognized that by standing behind Frey without confirming the facts, she had compromised a standard she had worked years to uphold. Their on-air exchange was calm but direct. She questioned him about every disputed event, including the jail claim, the medical details, and the girlfriend whose death he linked to his addiction. Frey argued that memoir reflects emotional truth rather than strict chronology, but his explanation sat uneasily beside the evidence. The room grew tense. The audience watched in quiet disbelief. Oprah stayed composed and addressed each inconsistency with the seriousness she believed the situation demanded. Frey eventually acknowledged that he had altered and expanded certain scenes. He said the emotional core remained intact even if the events did not match the record. Later editions of the book included an apology in which he admitted that he had written about a version of himself created to make sense of his past, rather than the person who actually lived it. Oprah did not view his apology as closure. She reminded readers that a memoir carries responsibility. People expect accuracy. Publishers are expected to check it. She accepted her part in the controversy as well, saying she trusted others to confirm the truth and should have insisted on stronger verification. The impact was swift. Frey lost professional support. Readers expressed disappointment. The publishing industry faced a broader debate about what memoir should represent and how far it can stretch events. In time, Frey pushed back. In an interview connected to the New York Times, he accused Oprah of brutal hypocrisy, claiming she had made statements that were far more misleading than anything he had written. For him, the conflict grew into a question about control, influence, and who gets to define a story's meaning. Next is a comic whose single remark shaped an entire chapter of Oprah's early career. One line became a turning point. Number 3. Joan Rivers. The early gatekeeper Oprah Winfrey has described the moment that redirected her early career, and it began during her first appearance on The Tonight Show in 1985. Joan Rivers was guest hosting that evening. Oprah arrived prepared to discuss the rise of AM Chicago. Instead, the exchange shifted quickly. Rivers looked at her and asked, "Tell me, why are you so fat?" The question arrived without preparation, live before a national audience. Oprah later said she froze. She did not know how to respond. She eventually answered, "Oh, I just love potato chips, Joan." Rivers did not stop there. She told Oprah, "Shame on you," and added, "I will let you come back if you lose 15 pounds. It was not delivered as a joke. It was presented as a condition. Oprah was young, still finding her footing, and she accepted it. She later said she believed she deserved that rebuke, as if success and visibility could not coexist with her size. The moment was more than a public slight. It marked a turning point. Oprah checked herself into what was then known as a weight loss retreat, convinced she had already lost the role. In The Color Purple, she believed her appearance had cost her the chance. She cried, she prayed, and the comments did not fade. They shaped her sense of what she needed to change. Everything shifted after one call. While she was at the retreat, Oprah answered the phone and heard Steven Spielberg. "I hear you are at a fat farm," he said. "If you lose a pound, you could lose this part." His words cut through the fear she had been carrying. She realized she was responding to pressure, not truth. She later said that when she released that fear, she felt it leave her body. "The instant I let it go was the greatest life lesson I ever received." That insight stayed with her. Do the work, be present, then release the fear that tries to shape the rest of the story. Now consider a different late night stage, one where the crowd turns restless and the host seems to lean into the tension. How would that feel from the guest seat? Number 2, David Letterman, the uneasy host. Oprah's discomfort with David Letterman began the moment she stepped onto his NBC late night stage in 1989. She was already established, confident in her voice and clear in her purpose. Yet she later described that taping as terrible. She said she felt exposed, caught inside a room where the energy turned against her. Some audience members shouted, "Get her, Dave!" And she believed Letterman encouraged the mood instead of calming it. She remembered men in the front rows who seemed intoxicated, a restless crowd, and a host who leaned toward the tension. She tried to settle the moment, but it moved beyond her control. What stayed with her was not a failed joke. It was the sense of being placed at the center of a spectacle she had never agreed to. After that night, she did not return. No invitation or friendly outreach changed her mind. Her silence was not rooted in pride. It came from the belief that the atmosphere she faced was shaped by the host, not by chance. To the world, Letterman's humor looked sharp and playful. To her, it carried a different tone. She did not feel like a guest. She felt placed in a position she had not consented to. Even so, she kept the story private. 16 years passed without an appearance, and she still refused to turn the experience into a public feud. Then, on December 1st, 2005, she returned to his Late Show, ending the long quiet between them. Letterman called the reunion the Super Bowl of love, hoping to soften the moment. On air, Oprah sat with calm composure and asked, "Could you please tell me what has transpired? I have never for a moment had a feud with you." Her tone remained even. Her restraint carried the message she did not speak aloud. The past still held weight. In a 2013 episode of Oprah's Next Chapter, she revisited the night again. Her words were steady. "It was a terrible experience," she said, not because she faltered, but because she felt unprotected. There were a bunch of drunk guys, and you were sort of baiting the audience. Letterman looked unsettled. He apologized immediately. "It never registered to me that that would be offensive. I am more than embarrassed." He admitted he did not remember the moment with the same gravity she carried. When she explained how it felt, he understood the cost. "Of course that would be hurtful. I am surprised you are here now." He kissed her hand, an attempt to close the gap between past and present. "Let us do it, David. Is it done?" she asked. "As far as I am," he said. "Done." The tension did not vanish, but it eased. Two people who lived the same night in different ways reached a shared understanding that the hurt mattered, and recognition was the only way to move forward. Being made the focus of a chaotic stage is one kind of wound. Another forms when a private family moment is brought into the public eye in a way someone calls exploitative. What happens when grief becomes part of the show? Number 1. Janet Jackson. The guarded loyalist Janet Jackson was not simply another guest on Oprah Winfrey's show. She saw the dynamic through a different lens entirely. To the public, Oprah appeared as a supportive presence to the Jackson family, a figure of empathy and care. Privately, Janet formed another view. She believed Oprah used her family's grief to draw attention, placing her brother's children in a position that crossed a boundary. It was not a personal feud. For Janet, it was a question of values. It felt like a quiet form of betrayal. Janet Jackson, born in 1966 in Gary, Indiana, rose to global prominence through discipline, artistry, and a commanding stage presence. By the 1980s and 1990s, she stood among the most influential performers in the world. The tension centers on one widely viewed interview. In 2010, Oprah hosted Michael Jackson's mother, Catherine, along with his children, Paris, Prince, and Blanket. To viewers, the moment appeared gentle and reflective. Behind the scenes, Janet saw something else. Reports described her as angry, believing Oprah positioned the children for ratings rather than protection. For her, the issue was not jealousy or publicity. It was the belief that a private moment of loss had been turned into content. The scene is easy to picture. Paris and Blanket sit beside their grandmother beneath bright studio lights. The questions begin, cameras move, and the conversation unfolds. The audience sees connection. Janet sees a compromise of privacy. She asks herself a quiet question: is this in service of her family, or is it in service of the show? Each composed smile becomes a reminder of how easily grief can be reframed. For Janet, the concern was not directed at Oprah as an individual. It was directed at the structure surrounding the platform. She respected Oprah's influence, but she refused to allow influence to outweigh principle. That belief shaped her choices moving forward. Calls went unanswered. Invitations were declined. Distance formed not from hostility, but from a decision to maintain her own boundaries.